What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to basically just break down a lot of the trinkets, how you want to use them, which ones you want to use, where you want to use them. So basically a big breakdown of trinkets in Naxx Rammus. Now, Naxx is a unique situation where there's a lot of different situations. Like some fights you can use the undead trinkets, and then you've got the spider wing. And then also deciding on using on-use trinkets or deciding on using just some static trinkets that usually wouldn't be as good as an on-use trinket. But we're going to talk about all of those things here today. So with that being said, let's just actually dive right in. So first off, I just want to look at a raw DPS stat that pretty much the trinkets give you. This is about a 75-second fight, not even about, this is simmed at a 75-second fight as swords. And how much DPS each one of these trinkets is, it was also just rounded up to make this easier for you guys. But like I've talked about in previous videos, Kiss of the Spider on a single target fight is your biggest DPS increase. Kiss of the Spider on a normal fight is your biggest DPS increase. And we've got Slayer's Crest and Mark of the Champion, which are pretty much the exact same. And these are insane trinkets. Obviously, they are all from Naxx, so you probably can't get all of them, but they are insane trinkets. And then we move down the list, obviously, to Jom Gabber, and then we've got DFT, Earthstrike, Seal of the Dawn, which is actually almost as good as DFT. I don't know why when I simmed it today, it was a little off, so I'll go back and fix that. Seal of Dawn is really incredible against undead targets, so don't sleep on that. A lot of the times I'm using Seal of Dawn and DFT if you don't have the Mark of the Champion yet. Then of course there's Renataki's, Hodge, and Blackhand's Breath. Now what I want to talk about is basically where you use what trinkets. That's just looking at it from like a normal POV, just standard, like Kiss of the Spider is best, and that's just what you see, right? So in an ideal world, you're probably rocking Kiss and Phylactery on bosses, and on trash, you might even want to run Slayer's Crest. Now let's look at Slayer's Crest, and that's kind of what I'm going to get into why. So obviously Slayer's Crest is insane. It's not as good as Kiss the Spider on that like patchwork sim, but it gives you a static 64 attack power, and it has the on-use effect of 260 attack power for 20 seconds. Now, as a general rule of thumb for trinkets, you pretty much want to use an on-use trinket on a fight that's like 35 seconds, 35 to 40 seconds, and then usually around 2 minutes and a half, like 2.5 minutes, is where it becomes really good again. Even 2 minutes and like 15 seconds is where they become very strong again, because you can use them 2 times. But all of the Naxx trinkets are just so good that even in like longer fights, they can generally outperform most of these static trinkets. But Slayer's Crest on itself has a static buff, 64 attack power, which almost is as good as like Seal of the Dawn itself. So it is a really good trinket to be able to keep on when it's off of CD. Ideally, in any situation, you don't use any trinkets while they are on CD, like any on-use trinkets. And I guess that's what I really want to dive into, is all of the best overall parses or all of the best single target parses, where you want to find best ways to min-max your trinkets. In an ideal world and in a queue, you're actually swapping your trinkets pretty much every single fight. The way to min-max was pretty much swap a trinket every single trash pull and then use your trinket on this next trash pull. Now, Naxx Rammus is kind of a unique situation where a lot of trash pulls actually die within like 4 to 10 seconds. So you don't get full use of your trinkets. Some trinkets that are insane actually for trash would be like Jom Gabber, where you can pop it early, and then as you're running into a trash pack, use Blade Flurry and have a high amount of stacks from Jom, because it gets stronger as you're waiting or as it's longer since you've used it. Now, Slayer's Crest on that behalf is one of these trinkets where if you get stuck in combat, it's always going to be a DPS increase for you. You're not just using a wasted trinket slot. And that's kind of the situation we see with things like Earth Strike and Jom Gabar and Renatakis, any really on-use trinket, if your guild is moving really quickly through the raid, you don't really have time to even swap your trinkets. Now, if there's more time in the raid, of course, you do want to swap trinkets, and I would actually suggest trinket swapping in between every pull if you have the time. But with speedruns being kind of the meta, or just quicker paces being the meta, I want to mention that like when you're moving at a faster pace, you have to look for opportunities to be able to use any on-use trinkets. And if not, you might even just opt to use 2 static trinkets, which for most people is DFT and Seal of the Dawn, until you can get Phylactery. If you get Seal of the Dawn and Phylactery, one thing you should be aware of is that both of them give you a hidden buff, so both of these will be giving you 2 hidden buffs. But Mark of the Champion is insane. That's even if you click off, obviously, the Argent Dawn buff, which you guys should be doing. Mark of the Champion, probably one of the most useful trinkets in here, and it's also a trinket that's going to be super useful in the Burning Crusade. So this is actually something you really want to focus on getting. And that's also a similar situation for Slayer's Crest, because this thing is insane for PvP in Burning Crusade. So early on Burning Crusade, Slayer's Crest is awesome. So these are 2 trinkets you really want to look out for. Most people are solely focused on getting Kiss of the Spider, when Slayer's Crest could actually pump up your DPS like an insane amount on some of these shorter cleaves, because you automatically have that 260 attack power on top of the 64 attack power. So like shorter cleave fights and trash, Slayer's Crest can be potentially the best trinket in the game on top of the Phylactery. Now, the reason why Kiss of the Spider is so good is because it increases obviously your attack speed, and for rogues, most of your damage is attack speed, or normal attacks, auto attacks. Around 60% on average is from your auto attacks. You do also get 1 crit and 1 hit, so you also have some static like improvements, kind of like Slayer's Crest. So Kiss of the Spider obviously is this like golden trinket that people are looking at. But Slayer's Crest is basically just as good and can be even more useful in some of these cleave fights if you're using things, especially like daggers, with the more attack power on those cleaves. This is going to be huge, actually. So in Naxx, the real things you need to be worried about, and basically it's like kind of like personal preference, like if you want to decide on Slayer's Crest or Kiss of the Spider, it's not really going to make much of a difference. If you want to plan for TBC, I would go with Slayer's Crest and Phylactery. But in Naxx, the biggest things you need to worry about are uptime. And so you look at the lengths of your fights, your boss kills, some patchworks, a lot of patchworks are a little bit over 2 minutes, and like they're 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So patchwork is insanely good for using an on-use trinket because you can use it twice. Thaddeus on a lot of fights, Lotheb is a lot of fights where you can use on-use trinkets twice. As a general rule of thumb, a lot of the top rogues have kind of been using on-use trinkets on boss fights and more static trinkets on trash, and that's something that actually really matters now. So if you aren't going to have any time to be able to put on a static trinket or an on-use trinket and use it on that trash pull, you oftentimes will opt to use just 2 static trinkets, your DFT and your Seal of Dawn, or your Phylactery if you have that. Because using the on-use trinket and not being able to use it on that pull is literally being a wasted trinket slot. So if you're focused on overall damage, which a lot of people are throughout this raid, it just makes the raid a lot faster, then during trash you want to be focused on either swapping trinkets every single pull if you can, or if you're moving too fast, then using your static trinkets. And then on boss fights, you want to use a static, usually a static and an on-use. There was a meta for a little bit of using 2 on-use trinkets, but that's something that's a little bit cheesier, cheeky. It depends on the length of the fights a lot. You'd need like a 1-minute fight for that to be incredible, but that would be actually insane. Once you get Phylactery, I would opt on using this on every fight, except for obviously the spider bosses that you don't need to use this on, like Fairlina and Myaxina. So once you get Mark of the Champion, I would opt on using this pretty much the entire instance, other than when you're fighting beasts. and then use the on-use trinket, which is either Kiss of the Spider or Slayer's Crest, but those are hard to get. So the ideal one is usually Jom Gabar and then Earth Strike for your on-use. Jom Gabar, you can use it early, and make sure you use it early before you get into a pull so that it's at a high amount of stacks while you're using Blade Flurry and just cleave things down. But that's pretty much it, guys. Just wanted to talk about trinket usage in Naxx. I did do a masterclass with a lot of the top rogues overall in the entire world, and that is up on YouTube from last week where we dove into these things also, but I wanted to talk about it just in a direct video to you guys. Anyways, if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm working on a ton of Burning Crusade content for you guys, so get ready for that, and I'll see you all on the next one.